Somewhere in time and space, the dark god Unicron and his minions invade a jungle world populated by Maximals. Unicron, seeking a way to cross galaxies, sends his Terrorcon herald Scourge to retrieve the transwarp key, an advanced device that can open portals in spacetime. Although the Maximals attempt to fight back, their leader Applink entrusts Optimus Primal with the transwarp key and orders him to keep the artifact from Unicron. As Primal and his followers, including Eraser, Cheetor, and Rhinox, use the key to escape their doomed planet and flee to prehistoric Earth, Scourge kills Applink after a brief fight and takes his insignia as a trophy. Thousands of years later, in June 1994, ex-military electronics expert Noah Diaz attempts to find a job to support his sick brother Chris. However, after another failed interview, his friend Erich convinces him to steal an expensive car from a nearby hotel. However, the car turns out to be the Autobot Mirage in disguise, who takes the terrified Noah on a joyride through the streets of New York City. At the same time, a museum on Ellis Island comes into possession of an unusual stone falcon with a Maximal insignia. After closing hours, museum intern Elena Wallace investigates the statue and accidentally breaks it open to reveal half of the transwarp key. The artifact releases an energy pulse that attracts the attention of Optimus Prime and the other Autobots, who have been stranded on Earth since their evacuation of Cybertron 7 years prior. Prime summons the nearest Autobots, RC, Bumblebee, and Mirage, who arrives at the meeting spot with Noah in tow. Although Optimus distrusts humans, he believes that they can use the transwarp key to return home and liberate their homeworld. Eventually, Mirage hatches a scheme to sneak into the museum and have Noah steal the key for them. Unbeknownst to the Autobots, the accidental activation of the transwarp key summons the Terracons to Earth. Noah meets Elena inside the museum, but cannot convince her to turn over the relic before the Terracons attack. Despite Prime's best efforts, Scourge successfully overpowers the Autobot leader, steals the transwarp key, and mortally injures Bumblebee before Eraser arrives to help drive the villains away. Eraser explains that the Maximals have been on Earth for millennia, and deliberately split the transwarp key in half to prevent Unicron or his followers from using it. She is the only survivor of the group watching over one half. The loss of Bumblebee only further galvanizes Optimus's resolve that they must reassemble the key and return home. Noah, fearful of Unicron's arrival, tells Elena that they must destroy the key to protect their own homeworld. Elena deduces that the other half of the key is located in a hidden temple in Peru, and Prime recruits the airborne Autobot Stratosphere to take them there. Near the city of Cusco, the Autobot Wheeljack guides them to the temple, located beneath a local monastery. A festival prevents the Autobots from moving through the city inconspicuously. As a result, Noah and Elena must make the journey on foot. The pair discover a hidden mechanism that leads to a hidden temple with a stone sarcophagus but find that the other half of the key is no longer inside it. The Terracons attack again, and although the Autobots are able to evade the villains, the conflict ends with Scourge infecting Eraser with a portion of Unicron's dark energy. On the other side of the temple, Noah and Elena encounter Optimus Primal, Cheetor, and Rhinox, who, after a brief standoff that is diffused by Eraser, agree to join forces with the Autobots. Optimus Primal explains that they entrusted their half of the transwarp key to a tribe of humans who live near the Energon-rich valley that Primal and his followers inhabit, while Optimus Prime distrusts humanity. Primal has lived among them for millennia, and has come to view them as friends and even allies. The next morning, however, Scourge's corruption finally overtakes Eraser. In the ensuing battle, Primal is forced to crush her spark to save Elena. While Noah makes an attempt to destroy their half of the transwarp key until Optimus convinces him to stand down. However, Scourge and the Terracons take advantage of the chaos to steal the other half of the key and relocate to a nearby volcano, which they reshape into a massive portal that will summon Unicron to Earth. Having found some common ground between their two races, Optimus Prime and Noah agree to work together, while the Autobot Maximal Alliance battle Unicron's minions. Noah and Elena attempt to sneak into the Terracon base and deactivate the transwarp device with a manual shutdown code based on Elena's studies of the Maximal language. Mirage attempts to distract Scourge so that the humans can complete their mission, but the Terracon leader gravely injures him, with the last of his strength. Mirage reshapes his body into an exosuit for Noah. As Unicron begins pushing his way through the portal to Earth and sending down reinforcements in the form of Predacon Scorponokes. The energy pulses released by the key ignite the nearby Energon deposits and restore Bumblebee to life. As Bumblebee joins the fight, Optimus Prime gains the upper hand and finally kills Scourge. But not before the Terracon damages the console and leaves the heroes unable to close the portal. With no other options, Prime destroys the key and triggers a devastating implosion. But Noah and Primal successfully rescue the Autobot leader from falling into the collapsing vortex. In the aftermath, the surviving Maximals remain in Peru, while the Autobots return to America. Elena is recognized for her archaeological discovery. While Noah applies for another security job, but discovers that the job opportunity is actually a front for a clandestine government organization codenamed G.I. Joe, who promised to cover his brother's treatment going forward. Sometime later, Noah has used spare Porsche parts to cobble together a new body for Mirage, and reveals his existence to a bewildered Reek. Long ago, the benevolent Primus sacrificed his life essence to become the planet Cybertron, and created the first generation of Transformers, the Primes. Through the power of the Matrix of Leadership, Energon flowed freely from the planet's core and the Primes ruled justly for a time. However, when the alien Quintessons began a long war of invasion, the Primes were eventually slain. And the Matrix of Leadership was lost, leaving only Sentinel Prime to rule the planet in their absence after the Cybertronians relocated to massive underground cities, abandoning the dangerous surface. 50 cycles after the war, Cybertronian society now relies on an underclass of manual laborers born without transformation cogs. Including a caste of miners who physically extract what few veins of usable energon remain from the tunnels beneath the subterranean Iacone city. While Sentinel Prime makes periodic journeys to the surface in search of the missing matrix. One impulsive miner named Orion Pax has been searching for information regarding the matrix, in the hopes that finding the artifact will restore Cybertron to prosperity and allow him and his fellow miners to choose their own path in life. Unfortunately, this search for information has led him to repeatedly break into the city's data archives without authorization. His latest attempt draws the unwanted attention of two guards who have caught him several times in the past already, leading to a wild, and nearly lethal, chase through the skyways, through buildings, and eventually into the ground-level public transport station. Though the guards eventually catch up to Orion, the miner's friend D16 provides a distraction and sends the guards off on a wild goose chase. On the train to work, the pair discuss Orion's latest life-endangering adventure, and Orion, knowing that his friend idolizes the strongest Prime, gifts D16 a rare first edition decal of Megatronus Prime's helmet he'd found. In the mines, D16 and Orion work under the supervision of their go-getting captain Elita 1. Using jetpacks and deployable support poles to keep Cybertron's shifting geology stable long enough for them to extract raw energon. However, Wheeljack accidentally hits a vein of unstable energon, and the ensuing explosions trap Jazz under a rockfall. Orion and D16 defy protocol and use a jetpack to save their coworker, but the chaos ends up damaging and destroying a lot of mine equipment. One of the mine's guards, Darkwing, blames Elita for the disaster, and informs her she's been demoted to waste management duty, despite Orion sticking up for her and taking the blame. That evening, Sentinel Prime returns to Iacone to announce that he still has not found the Matrix, to take the blow off this bad news. Sentinel declares that the prestigious Iacone 5000 race will be held the next day. Orion tries to persuade D16 to join him in the race, hoping that they can prove to the rest of Cybertron that mining bots deserve respect, but D16 has no interest in the idea. On the day of the race, Orion discreetly leads D16 to the maintenance area inside the giant starting signal above the race's starting line, while D16 is initially excited to watch from a perfect vantage point. Orion reveals his true intention as he straps jetpacks to the two just as the race begins and they're dropped into the thick of a throng of racing robots. Using their jetpacks and some quick thinking to compensate for their inability to transform, the two dodge the numerous traps and obstacles and briefly manage to take the lead, sending bots across the city into a frenzy, especially their fellow cogless miners. The pair are just about to limp across the finish line and take first place, but end up being run down by Chromia, who snags victory for herself. The pair figure they can still be proud of second place, until several dozen other racers whip by them in vehicle mode. In Yakin's medical center, where many racers have ultimately ended up, Sentinel Prime meets with Orion and D16. The pair are immediately certain they are in massive trouble, especially when they're scanned by Sentinel's creepy aide Arachnid before his arrival, but it turns out it's quite the opposite. Sentinel loved their little stunt, and tells them that the miners' productivity after that showing was already at 150%. Sentinel offers them a chance to tour the mines and help inspire their comrades to work harder, with promises of some pampering along the way, and the pair quickly agree. However, Darkwing arrives before Arachnid can escort them to Sentinel's private quarters. Infuriated that he nearly lost the race to the pair after they humiliated him, he drags them to the planet's 50th sub-level, 10 levels below what they thought was the lowest level of the planet, and locks them in a trash incineration station. The two bots soon meet the eccentric and exceptionally talkative B-127, who has been trapped at the job of look at garbage and take anything of value out before it's burned, for years, with only garbage statues for company. When one of B's pals, Steve, utters some electronic gibberish, Orion accidentally beheads the bot, but discovers within the wreckage an old beacon from the Quintesson War, still broadcasting a set of coordinates located somewhere on the planet's surface. Orion, B-127, and D-16 decide to investigate, escaping the only way they can, by climbing up the dump chute. The trio stow away aboard an automated surface-bound garbage train but coincidentally encounter Elita 1, who now works the refuse line. She handily clobbers the three but ends up locked in the train with them as it departs. She heads for the front, intending to report them to security. A mad dash that gets all the harder as the train starts moving vertically towards its destination. She manages to pop a hatch and make it out of the train, and the trio gives chase. But all four are stopped cold as they're enveloped in light and they find themselves traveling along Cybertron's surface. The four are stunned by the planet's natural beauty, only to become horrified as said natural beauty starts violently heaving upwards behind them, tearing up the self-building rail and scattering train cars. They run for it but are thrown off, waking in just enough time to completely miss another train, the rail unbuilding behind it. Alita is furious, but agrees to join Orion's search for the Matrix, on the conditions that 1. She's in command, 2. She holds the map, and 3. If the quest turns out to be a wild goose chase, then the other 3 will turn themselves in for their idiotic plan and paint her in a very positive light to the authorities. Orion very quickly agrees, and the 4 head off, confused by the weird not metal life growing on the surface. They spy a group of robotic quadrupedal lifeforms, which suddenly snap to attention and run for it as the ground begins to tremble. It's soon apparent the cause of their panic: a massive Quintesson spaceship. As the ship scans for any lifeforms, obliterating one of the Cybertronian fauna with a massive cannon blast when it ends up in the tracking beams. The 4 barely evade detection and the ship moves on. Soon they find themselves at the end of the map's trail, a hidden and extremely creepy cave. Inside they find a scene of absolute horror. The spot where the ancient primes made their final stand against the Quintessons, their bodies lying broken and covered in overgrowth. Although the Matrix is nowhere to be found, Orion discovers that Alpha Trion's spark still pulses and uses an energon cube provided by B to revive him. The 4 attempt to bring Trion up to speed on recent events, but their mention of Sentinel Prime causes Trion to reveal the terrible truth: Sentinel is an imposter, a traitorous aide who led the Primes into a Quintesson ambush in exchange for ruling Cybertron under the invaders' command. However, when Sentinel tried to claim the Matrix after prying it from Zeta Prime's corpse, the artifact judged him unworthy and disappeared. To appease his new masters, Sentinel has deliberately stolen transformation cogs from newborn Transformers to keep them producing energon in the mines, at Trion's urging. The 4 emerge from the cave to witness Sentinel pledging servitude to the Quintesson High Commander and learn the city's garbage trains are actually transporting Cybertron's dwindling energon supplies to Quintesson ships, leaving barely enough for the people of Cybertron. These revelations leave the bots horrified, but D16 takes it the worst of all, having also looked up to Sentinel for years. Alpha Trion decides to give the team hope by gifting them the transformation cogs from 4 of the fallen primes, as well as a recording of Sentinel's treachery. However, Arachnid spotted the 4 when they were watching Sentinel's meeting with the Quintessons, and a squad of Sentinel's trackers arrive. Despite his disrepair, Alpha Trion uses his Leonine alternate mode to wipe out the squad, allowing Orion and the others to escape, but is quickly incapacitated by Arachnid. The 4 bots have a very rocky time learning to transform in the middle of fleeing a squad of trackers, tumbling downhill with only parts of them shifting into their new vehicle modes. But desperation forces them to adapt very quickly. Each one finds new abilities and an aptitude for combat, and soon they're able to destroy their pursuers. Overjoyed at their victory, they make the plan to use the incriminating information Trion gave them by returning to Iacone and exposing Sentinel as a traitor. In their excitement, they fail to notice a tracker about to shoot them from behind until D16 uses his new tank mode to kill him first, and then starts laughing at what he just did. D16 snatches the evidence and takes the lead, his ever-growing intensity and openly stated desire to kill Sentinel leaving Orion more and more unnerved. Back in Iacone, Alpha Trion is brought before Sentinel, who mocks the old-timer and gloats about his station, complaining to Arachnid about the Prime's stuffiness and boring speeches. Trion's word of warning that Sentinel's time will soon be over only annoys the false Prime further. And in a fit of rage he kills the ancient Prime before sending Arachnid back to the surface to hunt down the wayward miners. Along the path to Iacone, a series of shots ring out, and each bot slips into stasis. Orion and the others are brought back online, bound and gagged in B's case, as prisoners of the former members of Cybertron's High Guard, who have been fighting a guerrilla war against the Quintessons ever since the fall of the Primes. Led by Starscream, D16 is not impressed, and giving into his growing rage, challenges Starscream's authority, and the two quickly end up in a brawl. While Starscream plays it tough even as D16 crushes his neck and damages his speech module, his attitude soon changes as D16 manifests a massive cannon on his arm. Aimed directly at Starscream's head, the Guard quickly rallies behind their new leader, ready to take the fight to Sentinel, but Arachnid's forces arrive and ambush them. Orion, having been buried in the battle, awakens when Alita drags him from the rubble to find that D16, B-127, and much of the Guard have been taken prisoner. And the data crystal containing the evidence of Sentinel's betrayal has been shattered. Orion despairs, believing their quest to be hopeless now, but Alita won't have it. Though she's still not above taking some digs at Orion, she points out that it is the bot's endless optimism that makes him a true leader. One that can make bots do amazing, and occasionally amazingly stupid, things. Orion takes the praise, and insults, and decides it's time to rally, and the two quickly formulate a plan. The Guard may be strong, but the last battle proved they aren't enough on their own, they need a true army, and Orion knows exactly where to get one. After Alita quickly shuts down any dissent from the remaining Guard, thanks to a very swift punch to Shockwave's eye, Orion primes the warriors for the coming battle. With a cry of "Transform and roll out!" The captives have been brought to Sentinel's tower, where the puppet leader gloats over them, mocking Starscream's scrambled voice and sneering at D16. But the miner does not cower or balk at all, declaring that he is not afraid of Sentinel, as he has nothing left to lose. Noticing the worn Megatronus decal, Sentinel reveals that he took Megatronus's transformation cog when he killed him, ripping the decal from the miner's arm before slapping it back onto his chest, and then knocking the miner on his back, using a mining tool to crudely carve the Prime's face into D16's chest. Orion uses his new form to rocket glide into the depths of Iacone City, entering the miners' quarters and bodily hurling Darkwing aside in the process. Orion reveals the truth to the miners and rallies them to join forces with the High Guard and rebel against Sentinel's regime. Meanwhile, Alita, Shockwave, and Soundwave have commandeered a returning garbage train, transporting the Guard into the city in a sneak attack. But the sudden appearance of hundreds of trackers makes things look very bad for the plan, until Orion and the miners leap into the fray and cut a swath through the incoming horde. Armed with their jetpacks and mining tools, Arachnid attempts to kill Orion, slamming him into the train engine, and revealing the incredibly horrifying array of optics hidden in the back of her head. But her multi-scanning abilities give Orion a sudden idea as the train plows towards Sentinel's tower. Sentinel, angered as D16 once again attempts to rise up, is just about to blow the miner's head off when the train slams into his tower. Soundwave frees the prisoners and the fight spills across the city. Sentinel transforms into combat mode, but D16 will not be deterred, the two launch into battle. Alita leaps into action, tackling Arachnid and attempting to take her prisoner, with only some gratuitously satisfying pummeling along the way. She drags the semi-conscious bot to one of Yakin's broadcast stations. And B makes a very over-enthusiastic entrance. Arachnid's memory banks are quickly scanned, and her memories of Sentinel's most recent meeting with the Quintessons are broadcast throughout the city, leading the populace to also join the fight. Sentinel fares badly in his fight with D16, and seeing his cowering before the Quintessons on dozens of screens, his empire in ruins, tries to flee, and when that fails, begs D16 to spare him, claiming they can co-rule Cybertron. D16 insists that Sentinel must die for his crimes. But Orion tries to convince his friend that they can't start a new age on Cybertron with the public execution of the former leader, though he also doesn't say that they shouldn't kill him either. D16 violently disagrees, knocking his friend aside and readying the kill shot, only for Orion to leap in the path, the cannon blast tearing through his torso and sending him tumbling over the edge. D16 grabs Orion's one good arm, horrified that Orion would stop him from killing Sentinel. With this betrayal, he vows he is done saving Orion from his mistakes and lets his dying friend plummet into Cybertron's depths. As Orion falls, D16, insistent that there will be no more primes, kills Sentinel by bisecting him with his hands. He then seizes Megatronus Cog from Sentinel's chest, replacing the one gifted to him by Tryon, which transforms him into an even more battle-ready form. Declaring himself Megatron, he commands the High Guard to destroy everything Sentinel built. In other words, what's left of the city. Meanwhile, the mortally wounded Orion falls through the planetary strata, which slides and shifts out of his way, until he finally reaches Cybertron's core. There, he encounters the spirits of the Primes as Tryon announce that Primus has deemed him worthy for the future of Cybertron and to carry the matrix of leadership, reformatting Orion and restoring his spark to declare him the newest of the Primes, Optimus Prime, before being sent rocketing back to the surface in a blaze of blue light. Alita and B try and fail to stop Megatron's rampage, their former friend ready to kill them too, but Optimus smashes onto the scene. Megatron is incensed at this new betrayal both by his former friend and the Matrix itself, and launches himself at Optimus. During their fight, Optimus manifests an energy battleaxe to fight against Megatron along with Starscream, Soundwave, and Shockwave before using it to destroy Megatron's new cannon, ultimately winning their fight. Unwilling to kill his oldest friend, Optimus reluctantly banishes Megatron and his new allies to the surface. Megatron seethes but decides that now is not the time, and takes his new army to the surface. With the return of the Matrix of Leadership, Cybertron is restored to life. Energon flows once again from the planet's core to the surface, and all of the cogless bots receive transformation cogs, becoming fully autonomous Autobots, who vow to defend Cybertron from any future Quintesson incursions. However, the Quintessons are not the only looming threat, though banished from Iacone. Megatron and his followers rechristen themselves the Decepticons and swear revenge.